Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just waiting for Instagram to let you know that I'm live, and then we are going to be having a great chat with Anna Maria Horner from Tennessee, an amazing designer, artist, author. So we were really looking forward to having a chat with her today. But I've come on a tiny bit early because I never want to... I always worry that my connection's not going to come through for some reason. That's what we do, isn't it? So thank you for joining us. So, oh, hi, Anna Maria. So you just need to request to join and you'll be right here. This is the bit where we all go with bated breath, that if you just request to join the chat, hopefully this will work. There we go. No, let's just try that again. Hooray! Hi!
It
So
worked.
It
I
worked.
worked.
So lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we start, can I just, somebody corrected me, said I was pronouncing your name incorrectly. So I'm so sorry.
Oh,
How do you
fine.
pronounce your lovely name?
It's Anna Maria, but
Beautiful.
just Anna is fine. I have a double first name. It was just a mean trick by my mom, and then my middle name is just an initial E.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
it's
no.
like funny both ways, but just Anna.
What a beautiful name. And I think what a perfect name for all your beautiful designs as well. So it's lovely to have you here. We are so excited to have you here. So thank you for joining us, everybody. We've got Anna Maria Horner here, who's an amazing fabric designer, artist, author, mum, all those things.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us. And mum to 7 as well. So even that's just amazing. Yeah. So how wonderful.
Plus a dog. Yeah.
Oh, plus the dog. Oh, let's see. Oh, you're giving us a glimpse into your wonderful. Hi. Oh, everyone loves to see a dog.
I hope I didn't make anyone dizzy. I will say too, something that I've learned in lives is that I have to shut up when you're talking. I'm a layered talker. So I'll say things on top, but it'll cut you out. So I'll do my very best when you're talking to not say a word, which is very hard for me.
So same for me. I've literally learned that in the last few weeks. I watched one back the other day and thought, oh, Joe, you were quiet. Because literally I've learned just to try and be quiet, because otherwise we just bleed over one another. So again, thank you so much for joining us. But I messaged you as soon as this collection arrived, because when it came in, it's called Made My Day, isn't it? Which when it came in, it made my day. It is just the most delightful, beautiful fabric collection well, all of yours are, but this one takes the biscuit for me. I absolutely love it. So what inspired you to achieve these, inspired you, and how did you achieve these gorgeous designs?
I can show you, like, in one turnaround photo. Let's see if it does. Bouquet from my lovely daughter Eleni. One that I just cut from my garden. So it occurred to me, I mean, anyone that's been using my fabrics for a short time or for a long time, I've been at this for about 17 years. I love flowers, but something that I had never really quite done was use bouquets that were given to me as inspiration. But I noticed that I always photograph every time someone gives me one, or I make one myself, or one is sent. I always have a photograph. I have this massive backlog of photographs, partly because when I'm drawing flowers, either very highly stylized or more realistic looking, I like doing so from my own photographs. Like, so I don't just Google images roses. Like, I like photographing roses either that I see or I receive, or that I'm lucky enough to bloom in my garden here and there. And I just really like, it feels more like it's mine, and I take the photographs from the angles and the perspective of how I picture them being portrayed in fabric. And so anyway, so yeah, as you know, receiving flowers feels amazing, right?
Oh, right. And hence the Made My Day. Do you know what? That story has made it even more lovely, because, and I bet people watching, what a brilliant idea to take pictures of when you receive them. I love
Yeah.
that idea, because
Yeah.
actually they go, that they don't they exist anymore, they die, and actually what a lovely memory to keep them, to have them, and even more. So this is
Yeah.
my favorite one.
Or just bolts of fabric to keep them forever.
So, I mean, so when you design them, do you look at them, and you must, I'm sure, and I can imagine you have got a very critical eye. So how long does it take you to design a line?
That print that you have right there, that's called Secret Admirer, that is probably like second place for the most complicated print I've ever designed in terms of time. Like days and days and days and days was working on that one. And
Yeah.
a lot, you wouldn't know that because I do a lot of intricate prints and I do some more simple ones, but that one in particular, the repeat is very complicated and kind of mysterious, because I didn't want it to be the very obvious, like pink flower, pink flower,
No,
pink flower
no.
straight across, that kind of drops at an irregular level, because I really truly wanted it to feel like a continuous field that just goes on forever, that I mean, you can find the repeat, of course, if you look for it, but it was more complicated, so it took more time. But I tend to be like, once I've sort of gathered my ideas and either photographs or very rough sketches of what I might want to do. Sometimes the sketch is just like, vertical lines and some wider, some thinner, reminding me that I want to do a border print. Or sometimes it's just a harlequin reminding me that I want to like set diamonds on point.
Yeah.
That print, I probably would have made a note to myself that is just a bunch of little curly packed in things, because all the elements are treated with equal importance and very continuous. So, lots of times my sketches are notes to myself about a style of a print, and I don't get to it until I get to it. But from the point where I have those ideas of kind of the print variety in a collection, and I've kind of gathered photographs, to when I'm turning it in, it tends to be anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks of continuous work. Now, do I ever work on anything continuously? No. So like I have to put it down and pick it up and put it down, but it's a couple months to develop.
Oh
So
wow, that's a long time, and it's a huge commitment. And I know you must have I know you're a very busy lady, so as well as all of those things I said at the beginning, you've got 7 amazing children who I see that you've got creatives amongst you, haven't you? It's carrying through.
Multiplying, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw you've got a son who's is he a musician?
Yes, I
Yeah,
have
she's a daughter who did those most amazing face.
daughter who has a makeup company and an incredible artist. She's the oldest. The next one's the musician. My next son is a chef. And then, on the brink of my 20-year-old, all sorts, who knows, very creative. And then a high school senior that's graduating and going off to play soccer and study nursing in college, and a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh, how lovely. Oh, and what a lovely spread of ages. And do you know what? Yeah. And I know I've got 2. I've got a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. And I honestly say every time, every age they've been through, like the teenage years, the baby years, the toddler years, I say every time, oh, I really love this time. This is my favorite. And I honestly can say that, isn't it just wonderful that the spread of ages, I think they are all so lovely at different things at different times.
Yes. Yes. And I think that every age is the hardest and every age is the easiest. I think it depends on where you are. I've sort of like, I have all of it at the same time. I don't have toddlers anymore, and I don't have really little people anymore. I mean, I have adults, and I only have 3 at home with me now. So it's a very different life to when I had 6 at home with me,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's and it's lovely that so your 8-year-old and your, did you say 12-year-old? How did you cope? How did you cope with them with lockdown? So in America, did you have lockdown as it like we had in England? We weren't allowed out, an hour a day out for exercise, and that was that.
We were never forced home. Schools were shut, businesses were shut, so that obviously changed your patterns of life. We just kind of, it's America. Like there were like, it was really business owners that were creating rules, and government entities like the airports and things like that were creating rules. Hospitals and government offices had rules, but for the most part, there was more freedom that each individual would take or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So our schools were shut for, that was the hardest part for me, because at the time, and still, I have one at the top end of high school, and then one in middle school, and one in elementary. So I had 3 kids in 3 different schools with 3 different sets of how online learning was going to go. And so I joked that I should be on roller skates, like skating from one room to the other, like, it won't let me in, it doesn't recognize my password. And like, there were moments where all 4 of us were just crying. We were just all crying. You know what I mean? Like, it was so stressful. And, I work at home. And so, of course, my home work environment became very different.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of the world, my work sped up because of the pandemic. It didn't slow down.
No, same here.
There was more demand. Right. So I have a retail operation as well in Nashville, and then online. And so that just, after like some silence, it just exploded. So not only was I kind of sort of halfway homeschooling 3 kids to just manage their engagement and make sure they were still learning, work got busier, So I'm really happy that we are closer to what I would consider normal. I mean, we come and go as we please. The shop has been opened. They're back in school. Like, it was, yes, I'm like just grateful that we've been through that bit, and it doesn't, God willing, feel like we'll be back to that.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, tricky times. Did you like our display of Anna?
Incredible.
Behind. I love this quilt backing. It's one of my favorite. It's just beautiful. It's honorable, isn't it? That one, honorable, from the
it's called honorable mention. Yeah.
So beautiful. And I always think with quilt backings, in fact, one of our clients has made some of those wrap trousers with this fabric. I should have asked her to send a photograph, but the kind of baggy ones with the big wrap around. She's made I think a lot of people think, because it's got quilt backing on the label, think that you can only use it for quilt backing, but that's not right. It's
right.
So much
it's
use.
so good for like a maxi dress. We've done that as well. And the other thing about when I do backings these days, I choose Free Spirit offer cotton sateen as an option for the backing, but I don't choose that. I choose one that is more like the cotton that's on the front of your quilts. It's closer to a standard quilting cotton. I think it's just slightly drapier, flowier. It's coming from a different mill, so it's not exactly the same as like the collection fabrics, but I do that for that exact reason, so that you can feel like it's not made for this one thing. It's made for your patchwork, because there's always some strip down the side that you didn't use for the backing on that full width. And I mean, not most of us aren't making 108-inch wide quilts sometimes, but yeah, so you can use it for the patchwork, and it or any other garment you do with regular cottons, so it's good for that.
So is that your favorite type of sewing, quilting? Would that be your main?
Yeah, I think so. I did clothing for years and years. I had a small little clothing line when I first got out of college, back before people, were buying things from individuals like they do now on Etsy. And, it was 25, 30 years ago. So it was before, we had all the different ways of buying handmade goods, went to the mall. There was no online ordering even then, so we really weren't exposed to handmade goods unless we went to a crafts festival or something, or just happened upon a shop that had handmade goods, right? So I would say that clothing sewing was my first love. In this industry, it is a type of offering, like, for instance, garment patterns, that I don't feel like I can give the amount of time I think it deserves in terms of like the customer support, the really broad size range that it should and could have, and it makes it more expensive, as well, to like that kind of printing and have really premium patterns so that it's more inclusive. And so as even though I started a clothing pattern line like in 2009, I've kind of scaled back a bit and not reintroducing new patterns every year. I think quilting has kind of taken over as the spoiled child of
Yeah,
crafts.
I think quilting. I think quilting is. I love all of the. I mean, Instagram is just has changed things for so many things, especially in the visual world. But I think quilters, Instagram it's just exploded with quilters, which I love, and I love all
Yeah,
of the different how people are showing them. And I think it's very big in America, isn't it, quilting? And it's
yeah.
still growing here. It's still
All
growing.
of old. And, I remember when my first collection of fabric, I should note, I am wearing a dress I made today.
Oh wow! Pretty.
Wearing, this is this shake it shift. This is one of my simple start patterns, just a very simple A-line shift. But anyway, I do love sewing for myself, but I guess what I was going to say is I'm very pleased to see that there are really dedicated, wonderful, like independent pattern companies out there, that it's almost one of those things like, I think it's covered. I can kind of like
Yeah.
do some patterns now and again when I'm interested, but as a full-time thing, I'm really focused more on quilts. But I was going to say, in terms of the worldwide quilting, when my very first collection of fabric called Bohemian that I did in 2005, I'll never forget getting an email from Kathy Dowdy in Australia. And at the time, I didn't know that she was American, like living in Australia.
Yeah.
She owned this and still does, and she's become a very close friend, owns Material Obsession. And she was like, we love your fabric. We just invented the happy dance when we opened the fabric because we've never seen anything like it. And my first thought was, my fabric's in Australia? Like, I had no
Wow, how exciting. What a lovely thing.
designed it, you know what I mean? But even Australia, like, a huge quilting community when you compare it to the population, which is only like 25 million, right? Like a
Yeah.
very robust and unique and growing all the time quilting community. And it's been nice. I have had the opportunity to teach in the UK a few times. And so I do feel like making those stops, and I've done Sewing Quarter when Sewing Quarter was the thing. Of course, that has changed. There's some other shows, but it's really nice to see that, you can kind of increase your community by coming and teaching, and it's very
Yeah.
grassroots. This is
Yeah,
how we're
absolutely.
designers.
And
It is,
and I do think the sewing community, whether it's sewing or as a whole, is a really everybody's lovely, aren't they?
I know. Yeah, I
It's such
agree.
a lovely community. I'm sure you see with your shop. Everybody,
Yeah,
you don't get cross customers. Everybody is just they just love sewing. They love the sewing community, and it's just everybody seems to just be very lovely, which is, all the creatives are just very happy to help each other, very happy to share stories.
yeah, I agree. And it's what I think is wonderful about social media. Like, it will never take the place, of course, of being in person with people. But once you have been able to once I've been able to like teach in shops in Australia or UK or Netherlands or California, wherever it is, like, you feel like that in-person experience continues
Yeah.
through social media, like it's a nice placeholder for being back together again and in each other's space. There's nothing like touching fabric in person, learning and sewing together in person. And I'm anxious to get back and do that again. I'm finally starting to put things on the calendar, because aside from being locked out of school and businesses and, travel, I was sort of have had a hiatus in my traveling and teaching.
Yeah.
And part of that has been good. I've been able to focus on different things. I made a big house move last year, which was a big change for us. And a full-time job, as you know, to manage selling one and buying another one and moving in. But I'm finally starting to get some things on the calendar again to travel and teach. So I'm happy about that.
Where did you move? But I knew you'd made a big move. But where did you move? Were you still around Nashville when you
Yeah.
made the move?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been to lovely Nashville. I love Nashville. I've been a couple of times. I've got relatives in Nashville, but I think they're about half an hour the other side of where you are. They're near Gordonsville. So
yeah.
my parents visit
out.
lots, and they said, "Oh, we've been to Franklin. We went to the. Is there a gin house there? And there's a
Yeah,
big battle fort there." So yeah, they know all
yeah,
about.
I know. It's definitely Civil War land down here, which my kids were like, "Oh, Mom, like you're moving to Franklin, like it's so, it's so narrow-minded down there." Actually, newsflash, what's incredible, okay, like there's a lot of like negative, of course, associated with Civil War in the South, but it was so happy for me to discover about Franklin is that um, freed slaves post Civil War settled in this neighborhood, and it is still a Black neighborhood. And a lot of the historic homes are these freed slave homes, you know. So my kids actually, so my kids actually down in this, historic town have never had a more diverse um, population in their school, which makes me really happy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely.
historic for a lot of reasons, and I'm really grateful it's diverse. You know, because the South has some spots that really are, and then some spots that really aren't. And I'm happy we landed in a place that is just real.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. But your accent's very gentle, I must say. When I first met my relatives who live in Nashville, it was my great uncle, because actually my grandmother, my great aunt married a GI back in married a GI, so they lived in Nashville. And when I first met my great uncle, we just kept smiling at one another because neither of us had a clue what each other was saying. His accent was so broad, and yeah, that was very funny. But yeah, they were from Nashville. We've been there a couple of times and love it. So it's
Yeah,
a nice
I
part
had.
of the world.
I didn't. I mean, you compare me to a northerner, I'm gonna sound southern, but I was raised by a Greek, and my father's from Greece, and always, and still to this day, has a very strong Greek accent. I think that there's something like you just don't want to lose it, maybe. And also, he speaks to his family and friends that are Greek all the time, so I guess you don't. But he's been here since he was 17. He's 80. Thick Greek accent.
Amazing.
Yeah, and my mother was from northern Indiana, which is, north, and I was born in Chicago. So we sort of, it's funny because my sister, who has lived in South Carolina for 30 years, sounds way more Southern because she's in South Carolina.
Really.
And yeah, and Nashville, you rarely meet people here that are from Nashville. There's a lot of West Coast transplants, a lot of New York transplants. So it's for the South, it's a pretty metropolitan town as far as where people are from. So, yeah.
So what's next? What's next for you then? What's the next big project on the horizon?
Well, at the moment, I have a conservatory is this collective of other artists that I work with. I
Yeah.
sort of curate and direct their designs, people that weren't in the fabric industry before that I've just artists that I have really admired, like Natalie Latte, Monica Forsberg. We're introducing a new conservatory artist later in the year. And so I have been, had to stop and get out of my pajamas when it was time for us almost to go out, because I've been in front of the computer perfecting her repeats and recoloring designs for her. So that's exciting. I moved into a much smaller home. We were in that big family home for 20 years almost. And so I moved into a smaller home now that I have fewer kids, and I didn't want to maintain 2 acres of property anymore. So, but it doesn't have a studio. So I've just given the okay yesterday, actually, to a builder that is going to build a studio out back for me.
Lovely. That's
I've
exciting.
renovated before, but I've never done a whole ground up building. And so we're doing a garage and space downstairs, and then I'll have an upstairs studio that I get to design from scratch. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, as I said, like always fabric collections. As I said, I'm going to be starting to add some things to my teaching calendar again towards the end of, mostly next year in 2023. But yeah, and probably in that conservatory collective that I do, we also have started doing some tapestry kits. I grew up doing tapestry, and I love that. And so with the introduction of this new designer's fabric line, I think we'll add new tapestry kits too. So just
what an exciting world you have. It just sounds lovely, and I'm so grateful for you joining us. But before we go, Anna, would you do a little, I know the answer to the first one probably, but I've got a little quick fire round. It's not very long, and there's nothing that you won't like in the questions. They're all fine, I'm sure. So
sure.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Where is your favorite place in the world?
Perth.
Where do you want to visit most?
Perth.
Oh, okay. Favorite drink?
Vodka, straight.
Favorite meal?
Greek.
Favorite film?
Ooh. Gosh, that's off. Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, yeah, it's a good film. And finally, this is just me being silly because it's Tennessee and Elvis or Dolly.
Oh, sorry, both. I grew up dancing to Elvis. My mom had all his records. My sister and I used to like make up dance routines. But Dolly is just like, you know, what would Dolly do? Is
that
Dolly?
Yeah, well, that's a great T-shirt. What would Dolly do?
Yeah.
I love the one. Yeah, both. I must say I'm both too. I grew up watching the Elvis films in the school holidays and swooning Elvis Presley and Dolly. Who doesn't love Dolly? She's amazing.
Well, and she was born and raised only she was born and raised in the Smoky Mountains, and that was my stomping ground growing up as well. And so it was, you know, the whole world over there in East Tennessee. I grew up in East Tennessee and just infiltrated with Dolly. So as it should be.
Smoky Mountains, beautiful. I was desperate. I visited Smoky Mountains, and I kept saying, "Stop the car! Stop the car! I think I've seen a bear." And of course, I haven't. I was just I so wanted to see a bear, and I never.
Yeah, yeah. We had a picnic there as teenagers, and we went down to the water, like the creek, stream, whatever you want to call it, and came back, and there was a bear on top of our picnic table, just helping herself to apple pie.
Oh my goodness, how terrifying.
It was big. We stayed back. I mean, for a black bear, it's not like a grizzly bear, it's a black bear, right? So they're big though, right? And fortunately we noticed that there was a little baby around too, so we you stay way back when there's a cub around, because that's when they get mean, is if they're being protective, right? Like all mothers.
I know, protective mums. Oh, well, I'm so grateful for chatting. It's been really lovely to chat to you today. I'm so pleased to manage to get to chat. And like I said, I'm going to hold this up to show the people that are watching, because there we go. How beautiful.
What a good stack you have.
Oh, they are just stunning. And all of our customers are loving it. And I know that there's loads of messages saying, please tell me what time it is on it, or please make sure you save it. I need to watch it back. And I'm so excited to talk to
Does it go into your stories, or it goes into your videos or whatever, doesn't it?
Yes, I'll save it, and it will go into stories and onto the grid, but I'm going to try and put it onto try and download it so I can share it onto Facebook too, because actually there's still there's still loads of people who would love to see you on Facebook, and it's a shame you can't do them live at the same time, because it's kind of you know, there's people that say, I haven't got Instagram, so I will try and download it to pop it on our Facebook as well, so I will do my best.
I tried to do a live, I'm still figuring it all out. Like, I have the basics figured out, but there's so much that I just don't know about how all of it works. I thought that you could do live and it would just stay, you know, recorded in your stories, but it kept posting to my grid as well, and I didn't want it to post to the grid.
You can ask it at the end to not post to your grid, I think. So when we end, there's a few options that you can, and that's why I'm going to slow down. We'll work it out, won't we?
So yeah, have to be like willing to just have you going, okay, this is a practice. Thank you so much, and thanks for the support and the invitation to chat.
You. Oh, it's been really lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Same. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And thanks for joining.
Thank you everybody for joining us.